Samsung has a new Android tablet, and it's the Galaxy Tab S6. It's the successor to the Galaxy Tab S4. Wait, what happened to the Tab S5? Well, whatever. Here's what the Tab S6 is all about. The Tab S6 looks like the iPad Pro in that there are slim bezels that are also uniform around the screen for a modern look. There are still enough bezels on the sides to make it manageable to hold in one hand though. It's a 10.5 Super AMOLED display and it's sharp and colorful, that's aided by that 2560 by 1600 resolution. But it's the back of the Tab S6 that's a little more interesting. The camera placement is a little different from the S4, but more importantly, it's no longer a glass back, it's aluminum. And that's great because who really wants a glass back on a tablet? It just means that when you drop this thing, you have something extra to worry about. Not so much with the Tab S6. Your eye might also wander to the oblong indent that's on the back, and that's to house the S Pen. That basically now magnetically attaches to the back of the Tab S6, and before, you didn't really have a place to put this thing, especially with the Tab S4. You had a separate accessory that you had to hook it to, basically the keyboard cover. With the Tab S6, you have a dedicated place for the S Pen, and it mimics the iPad Pro in that it stays on magnetically and also wirelessly recharges the S Pen. But in the little time I used it, it didn't seem to be as secure as the Apple Pencil is on the iPad Pro. It wiggled around a bit, and that would mean that it would lose the charging capabilities, so I would have to make sure it's correctly adjusted. And it's not quite as easy to quickly place it on the back because there's a specific area you have to place it, and it's not quite as easy to figure out exactly where it is without looking, though it might be easier the more you do it. That being said, I do like the fact that you finally have a place to put your S Pen and that it can be charged at the same time. If you get the keyboard cover or the standard cover for the Tab S6, there is a little pouch that keeps it secure, and it's also easily accessible from the top. Samsung has also improved the keyboard in a variety of ways. First off, it's a two-piece keyboard, so there's the cover, which acts as a kickstand, as well as the keyboard attachment, so you can still take out the keyboard and use the cover alone. That kickstand cover lets you adjust it in a variety of angles, allowing you more versatility when you're typing. But the biggest improvement is that there's finally a trackpad on the keyboard. Finally. I've been asking for a trackpad on something like the Apple Smart Keyboard or the last year's Tab S4 keyboard. Hasn't been available. Finally, you're getting it with the Tab S6, and it improves multitasking and productivity greatly. Also in the keyboard are function keys, giving you quick access to shortcuts, including DeX mode. Before we get to DeX, it is an Android tablet, so it's running Android 9 Pie, layered over with Samsung's One UI interface. That means it's the same experience that you can find on Samsung's smartphones. It's pretty customizable, and it looks pretty good as well, but DeX mode is really what makes the Tab S6 stand out. When you turn on DeX mode, basically you're getting an Android desktop interface with things like right-click support, multi-window support, resizable windows. Generally, you're getting something that's more equivalent to a laptop. It's significantly easier to do more productive things in DeX mode than it is with the Android traditional interface. It's definitely a plus, but keep in mind that third-party apps do have to add support, so not all apps will be supported. Things might be a little wonky. Still, it's far better than anything else you can find on an Android tablet. And if you're worried about performance, don't be. The Galaxy Tab S6 is powered by Qualcomm's Snapdragon 855 processor with 6 gigs of RAM for the base version, and it's the same chipset that's inside many other flagship phones like Samsung's Galaxy S10. It's really powerful, and basically it'll let you do anything and everything you want to do, so you really shouldn't have much trouble with your favorite apps and games. On the audio side of things, it is a quad speaker setup with speakers on all four corners of the tablet. There is no headphone jack though, so you have to use Bluetooth earbuds, or you can connect a dongle with the USB-C port. You also might think that there's no fingerprint sensor. Well, there is one, it's just hidden underneath the display. But it's not similar to the one on the Galaxy S10. That uses ultrasonic technology, and it's more secure and more responsive. This one is an optical sensor, so it's not as secure, but we also haven't had much of a chance to see it in action. Now going back to the S Pen, there are some improvements here as well. Samsung has added the Bluetooth remote functionality that we first saw on the Note 9 S Pen. Basically, that means that you can control certain functions on the tablet with the S Pen. For example, if you want to take a photo but don't want to touch that shutter button because the tablet is too far away, you can do so just by pressing the S Pen's button. There's a new feature called Air Control. You can use the button on the S Pen in conjunction with gestures to navigate through various apps. For example, in the camera app, you can use it to swipe left without having to touch the tablet, and it'll go through the different camera modes. Now all of this can be customized in the settings, and of course it can also be used with third-party apps, but that really depends on third-party manufacturers if they will add support. I don't quite recommend using the camera on a tablet to take your photos because the one in your smartphone is most likely better, But for those of you that do use it, the Galaxy Tab S6 has a dual camera setup, which isn't very common for tablets. It's a 13 megapixel main lens paired with a 5 megapixel wide-angle lens, and the wide-angle lens is 123 degrees, so anything you can see with your eyes, the Tab S6 can capture. There is also an 8 megapixel front-facing camera, but I haven't gotten a chance to test it yet. Samsung has also added a feature called Game Booster, and this analyzes all the apps running in the background and optimizes them so that your gaming is getting the best performance and best battery life. Game Booster pops up as an overlay in your games, and Samsung has also added a partnership with Discord that lets you access Discord right from Game Booster so that you don't have to exit your gaming app. It is a smaller battery in the Tab S6 compared to the Tab S4. The Tab S4 had a 7,300 mAh battery, whereas the Tab S6 has a 7,040 mAh battery. Samsung initially claimed 16 hours of battery life in the Tab S4, but it's now claiming 15 hours with the Tab S6, so not a huge difference, but when we tested the Tab S4, we were still able to get it through a full day of use without much problems. We're expecting something similar here. The Galaxy Tab S6 costs $649 with 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. There is an 8 gigs of RAM version with 256 gigs of storage, and that'll cost you $729. The keyboard accessory is separate and it'll cost you $179, but both will be available on September 6th. The Tab S6 is being pitched as an Android tablet that you can use for multimedia, to watch movies, play games, but also as a productivity workhorse with that superior performance. But whether it's worth $650, not to mention adding that expensive keyboard, when you can buy a Chromebook for less and achieve similar levels of productivity, that will require a bit more testing.